question?
Hold on, David.
Get as much as we can out of this data set. And I did actually hear your response to Priscilla when you asked that, but I think one of the questions she asked is whether there were questions that are not included in the report that we saw tonight. Okay. So I would like to make a formal request that you please share your report, the full set of questions, all of the data, and all of the qualitative responses, so that we can have the opportunity to please take a look and just see what else may be there, so that we can help think about ways to move forward from here.
Okay, so, I appreciate that comment, David, and I agree that it would be very helpful for us to hear the voices of all the constituents. But we have to be very careful when it comes to comments, if they appear to be evaluative of anyone, because that's beyond the scope of the board. So I don't know if you want to change your request.
The superintendent, so if there are questions about the superintendent, those can be anything that is uniquely identifiable in any other individual people. Then I certainly understand that that's a constraint. But outside of that, I would ask if we can see all questions that are legally accessible to us.
Do we need a motion for that?
I think we just have an ongoing sharing.
So I think your request has been heard by the administration, and we'll move forward on that. Any other questions that you have, David? Perfect. Anyone else? Brooke, did you?
I'm good.
Okay. I just want to take a moment to thank you again, Lisa, Cheryl, Jonathan, for all the work you did to present this. I want to thank, I agree with Erin and Brooke, who said 71% is amazing. When I worked here in this school, to get 71% of anything was a miracle. So I appreciate all of the staff who took time to answer that, because it really gives the board and the community a sense of what everyone's thinking. And in order to move forward, we have to know what all the constituencies are thinking. I think we should celebrate the successes and continue that positive work and focus our attention on the areas of need. And I know that's something that you as administrators always do, so thanks for that. Go ahead, Maria.
Thank you. And thank you, David, for that suggestion. I know that it's been noted, but I would like to make a motion that the board is able to receive the information from the Panorama survey that is legally permissible to us within about a week.
Okay, so Ms. Madonna made the motion, Dr. Ross seconded it. Any discussion on that motion? Okay.
Can I just make a quick comment? I think this date would be great to have. I'm just worried about the constraint of a week. I would leave it up to the administrators if they need more time, or it seems like they're stretched already. So it's like to add that, maybe they might need some more time. But if we get it in a week, that's great. But I want to find any more.
Would you be willing to accept by the end of the month? Just because of the holiday and everything.
And that was my concern too.
Yeah.
The stretch was it is, so
Yeah.
I think, Jeff, I agree with you.
So friendly amendment to the end of the month. David, do you accept that? We're going to extend getting the report until the end of the month. Okay, so the motion's been amended for the information to be received by the end of November, and David's accepted that amendment. Any other discussion? Erin?
Yeah, I just think it's important to go on record in front of the administrators and the public to say, like, it's not for evaluative purposes. It really honestly isn't. I'm sure there are comments in there that, I mean, I get comments from my staff. I oversee a lot of people. Not all the comments are pretty, right? I'm sure there's comments that are like, you might be going like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're not gonna read that comment, as well as other comments that probably do speak glowingly of your work. So I just think it's important that as a board, we say publicly, like, please, I know this can be anxiety producing. It is not evaluative. It really is out of a desire to have a good sense of just what's happening in the school and for us to know how we can be your best supports and advocate. Because along with that 71% that answered the surveys, because they believe in Beecher Road School and they want us to see the best we can be, like, we all dedicate our copious amounts of time to attend these meetings and to do this because we also are really invested in you guys and in this school and wanting to support you and support the teachers to be the best that we can be as a community. So I just think it's important for that to be part of the record, that I don't want this request to be seen. I know it might seem as like, oh my gosh, and I totally get that as someone who gets a lot of evaluations as well. But I think I hope that I'm speaking for my colleagues when I say, I think the interest is really just an interest and a desire to understand. And we know that the comments range a gambit, as they always do anytime you have a large number of people taking a survey. Thank you.
Fully agree, Erin. Thank you for saying that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. I'll call the roll. Sarah Beck?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Erin?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, so that it's unanimous. Anything else, board members? Okay, we'll move on to the update on the safe return plan and COVID-19 guidelines.
Just need to share my screen. Mike, you're on my screen. Can you see that? Mike, can you see that? So this is an update to the community on the safe return plan. And our first slide is sorry, technical difficulties. Our first slide speaks to some of the key updates, which is that we've had approximately 50 days of in-person learning for all Beecher Road students. Our Safe Return Committee continues to meet. Since our October meeting, we've had 3 additional COVID cases at Beecher Road, but again, no confirmed cases of in-school transmission. We did begin the week of November 1st, optional in-school screening testing for approximately 100 students. And we announced that our quarantine length would be modified. That is, whereas a child previously was quarantined for a straight 10 days, now the student could return after 7 days. If the student has a documented negative test from day 5 or later, if the child is asymptomatic. Very pleased that QBHD and Griffin Health are continuing their pediatric vaccination clinics. They're actually going to be doing a second one this Sunday, November 21st. And then we have enabled the screen and stay option that was referenced a little bit earlier, which led to parent, guardian, and staff surveys last week, and implementation this week with any future Beecher Road quarantines based on the results. Now, the details of screen and stay we explained in a thorough, as clear as we could be letter today. We have, as you'll see in a minute, scheduled an additional forum later this week. The definition of a close contact does not change. However, certain close contacts in grades K to 6 no longer will need to quarantine. And the definition in the middle is key. If the K-6 close contact has not been within 6 feet unmasked or indoors of the COVID-positive individual, that close contact does not need to quarantine. If the parents, guardians affirm on a form that they will monitor the child's symptoms for 14 calendar days and keep the child home if symptomatic. So that's a parent-guardian responsibility. That will be an online form, and the parents and guardians will then monitor the status for 14 days. Now, in that case, the school-required quarantines will probably just be the students who ate snack and lunch in the classroom around the COVID-positive individual. I stress school required there because on the next slide you will see that a parent still has the option of having the child quarantined, even if the child is eligible for screen and stay. So we would have to continue to mandate the quarantines for those students directly around the affected individual. And I can tell you that the fact is we probably cannot assure in every single case that snack and lunch can be spread out more than the required number of feet. Now, the second bullet is important, and it was referenced earlier. Per mandate of the state, the students participating in screen and stay may have modified physical education and music instruction for 14 calendar days. That's a may have because it depends on what the phys ed or music activity is. Aerobic physical education activities or singing, music activities would not be allowed to be engaged in by these students, and Ms. Sherman is meeting with the music and phys ed teachers later this week about that. It's important to note that screen and stay only applies to close contacts during the school day or on bus transportation. It is not an option for extended day. That's by the state guidelines. And finally, it's important to note, especially with the Griffin Health QBHD connection, that fully vaccinated students, in any case, don't need to quarantine, whether for 10 days, 7 days, or anything. When we do contact tracing, a person who is fully vaccinated does not need to quarantine unless symptomatic. To show the survey feedback that led to this decision, we did ask all the parents who responded. There were 239 responses. If their child were eligible for screen and stay, would they affirm that they would engage in that process of monitoring for 14 days? And 80% said yes, leading us to the conclusion that this was a viable process to engage in. Secondly, when you get to the implementation of snack and lunch, again, we'd be in a situation where the entire class would need to quarantine, but those who are close would need to quarantine. And would you support screen and stay with this as the case? So approximately 3/4 of parents said that they would. The staff was divided about a third on this from the 50 staff respondents. But of course, as a member of the Safe Return Committee pointed out, with fully vaccinated students not needing to quarantine any longer anyway, the fact is there'll just be fewer students in the there'll be fewer scenarios where the whole class has to fully quarantine. I want to share here with the other administrators feedback related to the strong job being done. These are some trends from the qualitative feedback. The strongest theme that we saw in the qualitative feedback were from parents and or staff thanking the school for, as you can see in the responses, the in-person instruction, the communications, and I think of great pride to the administration. The fourth bullet, that we've done a great job dealing with a wide spectrum of issues and parents' concerns without alienating individuals with opposing views. We also had some people recognizing the communication could sometimes be better. To illustrate, as I like to do for the community, that we have a variety of thoughts in our community. We had actually just as many people support lifting the restrictions as we did people opposing lifting the restrictions. And we also had some strong opinions, even though there was not a lot of discussion on this point on the survey. There was feedback related to both encouraging and not encouraging vaccination. We did ask a survey question of parents just related to when they thought they would anticipate their child getting vaccinated against COVID. And we gave some options there by December 31st, by March 31st, or by June 30th, or my child is already vaccinated, or never. And we should have added the response of just not sure. So there's not, this is not a great question to have answered, to have asked this particular way, but I can tell you the way we asked it, about 53% of parents said that they plan to have their child vaccinated by this December, and another 16% said that their child is already vaccinated. So that also helps us to gauge that this dual kind of teaching is going to continue in any case. Our next steps, we did e-blast details to parents today, and we uploaded them to the website. And finally, we have scheduled an optional staff forum a Wednesday afternoon with the administrative team to answer particular questions about this or anything else related to the pandemic. And we've advertised an optional parent-guardian forum for Wednesday late afternoon because these are kind of complicated procedures. I would say that what's key is that our administrators do a great job when somebody actually is identified as a close contact, which of course could happen again. They do a great job at communicating the specifics. So in some cases, the specifics will be you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to formally quarantine. In other cases, the specifics will be about screen and stay or about the shorter quarantine period. So that is an update of where we are with COVID-19 restrictions at this particular point. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan, for that. Sarah Beth, anything?
I guess so this last parent's comment was that you've done a great job with not alienating individuals with opposing views. So by only the vaccinated children not having quarantine, how will that affect? I mean, I guess you won't know, but that sort of is starting to alienate people.
Sure, I think I interpret that particular comment as a little bit more on our process as opposed to the actual outcome. There's nothing we're doing here that's not allowable or contrary to state guidance, but you're correct that ultimately when students and or staff get fully vaccinated, there's kind of a different pathway for them than there is for others. I think what our team takes good note of is that we are accommodating of various viewpoints and listen to them, despite sometimes not being able to change the outcome.
But we don't have to follow those guidelines, do we? That
We do not have to follow the screen and stay guidelines,
okay.
but the guidelines that a fully vaccinated person doesn't have to quarantine, that's a state mandate.
Okay.
If we weren't doing screen and stay, then we would have a situation where the people who are fully vaccinated would have to quarantine, would not have to quarantine, but everybody else would have to quarantine. Screen and stay allows us to broaden the reach of people who don't have to quarantine.
Mike, anything?
Yeah, a related question to that. Since some students may be
So, and it's timely because we do have parents sending us evidence of vaccination or the first dose in many cases of vaccination, which we keep if we get that information, but it's not necessary. Right now, because the fully vaccinated numbers of our students are rather low, when we do close contact tracing and the parent says that their child is fully vaccinated, we ask them to provide proof. However, our nursing staff have access to the statewide database of vaccination. As we start getting more students in that bucket, when we've developed the list of people who are close contacts, we'll then share that first with the nursing supervisor to see which of them are already fully vaccinated, and then we'll first prioritize communicating with those who aren't. So we have access to the information without the parents providing it, but at the moment, given the scale, we're asking the parents to provide it just for efficiency. I believe it's pretty immediate.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. Maria?
Thank you. I just had a question about the vaccine clinics, and I know Griffin Health is partnered with QVHD. With 53% of people responding that they want to get vaccinated by December, I know that the vaccination clinic that they had at Amity High School this past Sunday, they had to limit the number of people because they had such a great response, even though it was supposed to be a walk-in clinic. So were they planning to do that again, or were they planning to use Beecher Road as a site?
That's right, they're doing it again this Sunday, November 21st.
At Amity or here
Yes.
at Beecher? At Amity, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Jeff?
Just for clarification, the Screen and Stay program is through the state specifically. There's nothing specific to Woodbridge reading in here, is that correct?
Right, as we're implementing Screen and Stay, we have to implement it based on the state guidelines, so that's exactly what we're doing.
Okay. And then I understand this is probably a lot of administrative work, and I really want to sound appreciative of this program. I think it's a step in the right direction. But I do too have concerns with Sarah Beth identifying who's vaccinated and unvaccinated. I think that is just, I think it's morally wrong. I think health is a very private matter. And I know it's nothing we can do to follow state guidelines, but to separate unvaccinated and vaccinated, I just see that turning bad in so many ways. That's it.
Thank you, Jeff. Jay?
No, my question was about the administration, the system like us out already. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Aaron?
So just clarification on one question, and it's to go off of Jeff and then James, who gave the public comment. Is the 14-day symptomatic monitoring for the Screen and Stay, which is different than the 10-day if you quarantine at home, is that state? Are those numbers state? Okay, so just James, if you're listening, or anyone else who had that same question, the reason, because I agree, it is confusing why those numbers are different. It doesn't logically make sense. So the numbers of the 10 days versus the 14 days are mandated at a state level. Okay. And then going back to Jeff's question, and it does, it kind of goes into our diversity stuff, right? Of we're gonna have kids, some kids are gonna be vaccinated and some kids aren't. There's a diversity of that. And so have teachers thought about, maybe we want to prompt teachers to think about, if that comes up in their classroom, how are they going to respond to that? Because parents have very strong opinions on both sides. Kids repeat, as we know, what they hear at home from their parents sometimes. And there may be times, as you see half the classroom at home and half the kids here, of either correct or incorrect assumptions about kids, and then as they all come together, why aren't you, why are you, I heard this, you know, and I will say even, you know, my kindergartner came home telling me stuff that she had heard at school in kindergarten. So I just going back to kind of that diversity and making sure everyone feels safe and welcome at Beecher and respected at Beecher. It might be just something that we want to prompt and think about of like how do we want teachers to respond as these things come up in the classroom. I'm sure you guys are way ahead of me on this and have already thought about it, but I just adding that diversity part.
Thanks, Erin. David, any questions or comments? Thank you, David. Brooke?
So the question I have again is, I think about if the teachers, they're already feeling very taxed, and then to take on another like medical issue, strain, that kind of concerns me. Again, how much medical work are we going to be doing in the school systems? We have the swabbing, which I know is a voluntary program, but the teachers are happy to help in administrating that. We already have to call families. I've gotten a phone call tonight. Quarantine. So, I mean, you guys are doing a lot of that additional work. I feel like, again, going back to what we spoke about earlier, that COVID has really changed quite a bit. And again, it's budgets, but the concern about also alienating children is going to happen. You know, there seems about a solid 50% are definitely going to vaccinate their children that aren't already. So the other 30% may or may not be, and that's going to happen. So more of a statement.
Thank you, Brooke. I too worry about the burden on the staff, especially the administration. I know how hard you're working. So I appreciate all the work that goes into this. And if you feel that there's any support that you need from the board, I hope that you will reach out to us.
We need it.
Lynn, can I just ask one clarifying question?
Go ahead, Jay, absolutely.
So, Jonathan, you talked about the vaccination in the survey. So you talked about 53% vaccination by December. You said to us 16% were vaccinated. I get 70%. So I'm looking at 70% there on the vaccination rate by the end of the year. Is there any information about parents who said they would fully vaccinate? So was there another category that I'm missing?
Sure, so there were 5 categories on that. About 15%, my child's already vaccinated. About 53% by December 31st. There's a small slice here that's going to be the remainder by March 31st. 18% by June 30th. 9% by June 30th, and about 18% never.
Okay, so we're the right 20% on the
That's correct, but I think some of the never might have chosen a not sure option if they had been option.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Was there an option that said not sure?
But also said they would, may not, they just think it's
That's
going to be
correct.
looked at, and they're not going to really do it, but they don't want to say no.
And I've heard
So
it
that's why I'm
said
thinking it's like
yeah.
50, whatever.
The slice about the child being already vaccinated against COVID-19, that 15% is probably high based on what we believe is the case, but again, we didn't get into the details here of fully vaccinated versus 1 dose, etc.
Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you so much for that. I think the updates are very helpful in keeping the board informed, and I appreciate your efforts. Next, we're on to.
Wait, can I just ask,
Oh, yeah.
is there a COVID agenda?
This is COVID guidelines, yeah.
Okay. Can I ask about, I know we were talking about maybe entering the cafeteria, can I ask how that's going, or?
About what?
Jeff, you have to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Try harder, yeah.
Yes, so if I could just ask about the cafeteria, the October 18th meeting, I think you said we're gonna start that week. So if I could just get an update where we are.
Yeah, so it ended up being a little more complicated than we originally anticipated. So I have to give a shout out here to Jimmy Safety, our assistant principal. He's been working really, really hard on getting this up and running. We ended up, there was a lot of pieces that went into it, including
getting the list of students to the nurses department so that they knew which classes were meeting together, so we could identify our allergy students. We also had to identify assigned seats for all of the students in case of contact tracing and swab and stay, screen and stay. Screen and stay, sorry, it's 9 o'clock. And we also, there was a lot of layers. I don't need to go into all of them with you. Long story short, tomorrow is the first day that we will be back in the CAF, starting with 2 classes at a time. And the schedule was a tremendous amount of work that Mr. Sabia also worked on, but it is launching tomorrow for sure. And we will be moving forward with that. And hopefully, maybe be able to even add more students into that cafeteria mix. So, start tomorrow.
Great, thank you. I can imagine a lot of work going into it. And thank you, it's moving in the right direction. Like Terry, adding more classes.
Yep.
Are there screen protectors being used in the cafeteria? Something I heard?
Yes, they all have they have the ones that are multi. But it's more than an X, because it's like an X and then another X. So, yes,
Sure.
short answer.
I obviously appreciate safety and all, but I think there's any science behind screen protectors. I want the children to feel like they're not being punished or put behind glass. Is there a way we can do without the screen protectors? Is there?
So I will tell you that when we had QBHD visit us and go on a building tour, I think that we talked about that at the previous meeting, they actually were the ones that noted the screen protectors as an additional safety measure to start with at least. Whether or not we can take them down in the future, I think that we'll have to consult with them again and consult with our school nurse supervisor and Dr. Shannon Martello. But definitely to start, we're going to keep them up.
Do we have Shannon tonight?
She wasn't invited, so I don't know if she's on here, Jim.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just for clarification, is she usually invited as our consultant?
Sometimes when she's going to present the details, she had been part of the secretary committee on the screens.
Okay.
So the students are also using the screens in the classroom during science too. So it's in keeping with the work that we're already doing in the classroom.
Okay. I just like to always see us move forward and some type of normalcy, so just keep that in mind.
Ask a question. Sorry, I don't need to go longer. No, but I think that's brings up a good point, which is we have, and I don't know, some of the change or the things, everything is changing all the time. And it might be helpful to just, for the parents, as a parent, to get an email on like, these are our current protocols, COVID protocols, and these are what you should expect as being implemented consistently in your classroom across the schools. Because again, just kind of that consistency of like, what are the protocols? We're no longer 6 feet, we're now 3 feet. We use screen protectors to Lisa's point when there's eating in the classroom. We will, I think it'd be helpful for parents to have a sense of like, what is our current status quo in terms of COVID protocols? Because I know I couldn't tell you what they are as a parent. I don't know if that other people feel on the board is probably helpful.
I think the last meeting we had, we heard that they were able to take the masks off outside, and what I noticed on the board and on people I knew, they asked, they said, oh, I didn't know that was going on. And when I asked, it had been going on for a while. And so I think that update on a regular basis would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, maybe even like what you've already gotten rid of, right? Like we no longer are requiring masks outside. We are no longer, so people can start, the people that want to see, because you can see from the survey, people are split on what they want. So I think it'd be helpful to say, here's what we are keeping in place. And here's what we have, because of, whatever, here's what we have decided or have heard is no longer effective. What we know about COVID is vastly different than what we knew when we started. So I just think that would be helpful, that information.